This is The National. A double-digit death toll in Manchester after an explosion at a concert. Police treat it as a terrorist incident. As Donald Trump gets cheers abroad, new allegations pile up back home. Horses down, concerns raised, but there's still support for Quebec's quaint carriages.
It's a nice experience. Do you always want to sit in a car? No.
Plus, conservatives at a crossroads talk about what they stand for.
If they're coming after our farmers, why are you offering them up on a silver platter?
British police say they are dealing with a terrorist incident in Manchester tonight. At least 19 people are confirmed dead, and dozens have been wounded in an explosion outside a pop concert attended by thousands of teenagers. A loud bang was heard right after Ariana Grande finished performing. The explosion could also be heard from a distance. Eyewitnesses describe a scene of panic.
As I was waiting, an explosion went off and it threw me through the first set of doors, about 30 foot to the next set of doors. When I got up and looked round, there was about 30 people scattered everywhere.
There were shoes on the floor where people had ran and the shoes had fallen off. So it was absolutely awful.
Ambulances and emergency vehicles raced to the scene. A nearby train station was evacuated. Eyewitnesses say the explosion occurred outside the arena near the box office. This story is developing rapidly. Thomas Dagla is in London with the latest details. Thomas.
Carol, police have not said what they suspect the source of the explosion was, though witnesses report seeing nuts and bolts scattered on the ground. There has been no confirmation of the reports coming out of the United States tonight that this was carried out by a suicide bomber, though I should mention, if Greater Manchester Police are looking for any suspects, they have not said so. They still have a large security perimeter in place around the Manchester Arena. Police carried out a controlled detonation tonight nearby, thinking that they had located a second suspect device, but it turned out to be just a pile of abandoned clothing. The Manchester Arena has itself put out a statement tonight confirming that the original explosion occurred outside the venue in a public area believed to be near the box office. Here's what we're hearing from one witness.
We were stood in the foyer part where the merchandise was, just outside the arena doors where the girls were. And we were waiting and we heard the last record come on and people started streaming out, and then next thing is a big flash. Didn't really hear the bang to start off with. Big flash and then a whoosh of air, and just thought, what the hell's that? And then a smell in the air, and then my ears started ringing. I thought, what's that? And sort of looked back where the explosion was, and there were people laid out on the floor.
Now, no group has claimed responsibility for this attack, though I should mention ISIS accounts online are said to be celebrating this attack. With the nature of this concert with pop star Ariana Grande, surely most of the concert goers here were young, many likely there without their parents. Some 50 unaccompanied children are said to be together being taken care of in a hotel by staff nearby. You can imagine the fear from parents who were just on their way to pick up their kids at this concert when they heard the news, Carol.
Absolutely horrific. Thomas, thank you so much. I know you have work to do, but we are going to come back to you for an update a little later on. So we'll talk to you a little later in the program. In the meantime, Canada's public safety minister has commented. Ralph Goodale tweeted tonight, just moments ago, deeply concerned about brutal attacks in UK. Thoughts and prayers with victims and loved ones. All Canadians stand firm with the British people. And as Thomas just mentioned, this other heartbreaking angle that is playing out in the midst of that chaos, some people could not find or reach their own children. They have turned to Twitter, posting photos and begging anyone with information about them to get in touch, asking anyone to retweet the photos in the hopes that someone would see them. In fact, someone posted that a woman had gathered about 50 children with her and she was looking after them. And as Thomas mentioned, dozens also being taken to a nearby hotel. And some people have found their loved ones, crediting the help of Twitter. We are going to keep following the Manchester story for you and bring you the latest information as we get it in. Right now, though, I'll turn to other news. Donald Trump in Jerusalem tonight, half a world away from Washington, but not far enough to escape the political heat on his administration. There's a new report this evening of interference by the U.S. president in the ongoing Russia investigation. Just one development in a day full of deepening intrigue on Capitol Hill and beyond. Ellen Morrow has those details.
The FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election.
This was James Comey back in March, about to deliver a line that would shake the White House, confirming that the Trump campaign was also part of that investigation for possible collusion with Russia.
As with any counterintelligence investigation, this will also include an assessment of whether any crimes were committed.
According to a new report from the Washington Post, President Trump appealed to two top intelligence officials, the directors of national intelligence and the National Security Agency, following Comey's testimony, asking them to publicly deny the existence of any evidence of collusion. The story, citing anonymous officials, says both Daniel Coates and Admiral Michael Rogers refused to comply, finding Trump's request inappropriate. There's reportedly at least one memo documenting Trump's conversations, which could eventually find its way to Robert Mueller, the special counsel now leading the Russia investigation. The latest revelation comes after more than a week of upheaval following Trump's firing of Comey, prompting deepening suspicions about the Trump campaign, its possible ties to Russia, and growing accusations Trump tried to influence the probe. Another development today, Michael Flynn, Trump's former national security advisor, used his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, rejecting a subpoena from a Senate committee investigating Russian election meddling and refusing to hand over documents relating to his Russia contacts.
Congress has a remedy. Congress can get the documents. Congress can get his testimony. But they would have to give him immunity.
And that could conflict with Mueller's criminal investigation. Flynn is likely to be a main target. On top of all that, earlier today, Trump himself seemed to confirm reports he leaked classified information to Russian officials in the Oval Office last week. Not denying he did it, just saying he didn't reveal Israel as the source.
I never mentioned the word or the name Israel. Never mentioned it during that conversation.
Michael Flynn could be held in contempt of Congress for refusing to hand over his documents. He's also facing fresh allegations that he lied about his ties to Russia when renewing his security clearance. And further legal problems for Flynn will almost inevitably mean more questions for the Trump administration. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
Donald Trump's visit to Israel has been a welcome reprieve from the drama at home. Our Susan Ormiston is in Jerusalem tonight.
The U.S. president basked in a warm Israeli welcome. Such a contrast from bitter fights at home. But in Donald Trump's 28 hours here, he ventures into deep divides which will demand tough concessions more than hopeful words.
We have before us a rare opportunity to bring security and stability and peace to this region and to its people.
In Jerusalem, his visit prompted almost feverish enthusiasm. An impromptu group trying to drown out a visiting Christian from New York who called Trump fallen and wicked.
There's no peace for the wicked, Mr. President!
Under a massive security net with eyes in the sky, 5,000 police locked down parts of Jerusalem, including the Old City. As the motorcade snaked along, cheers from Jewish faithful, who understand they need a powerful U.S. ally. Trump began a mission of persuasion with a family visit to the Western Wall, a deeply holy site but still contested territory in East Jerusalem. For Israelis, these were the enduring images of the day.
He's the first active president to ever visit the Western Wall. It shows us how much he loves us, and it shows that he's a true friend of Israel and the Jewish people.
But the U.S.'s former ambassador has lower expectations.
I'm cautious. I think almost everybody I know who has worked on this issue, and almost every Israeli and Palestinian I know, suggest that the conditions are not right.
Throughout, two strong themes. In meetings with the Israeli Prime Minister, Trump lashed out at Iran's aggression and prodded Benjamin Netanyahu towards possible peace with the Palestinians.
And Mr. President, for the first time in my lifetime, I see a real hope for change.
I have a feeling that we're going to get there eventually. I hope.
Day one, Jerusalem. Day two, Bethlehem. President Trump will cross over a separation barrier into the West Bank tomorrow to test the resolve of Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. His supporters are already suspicious of Trump's close ties to Israel. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A big part of Trump's visit so far has been trying to unite U.S. allies in the Mideast. He says Muslim nations and Israel share a common cause in countering the threat posed by Iran.
Iran must never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon. Never, ever.
A short time later, Iran's president said his country's weapons were defensive only. But he said missile tests will continue when necessary without American permission. A diplomatic spat between the U.S. and Turkey escalated today. It's all over this, a brawl last week during a visit to Washington by Turkey's president. Turkish security personnel appeared to attack protesters outside the Turkish embassy as President Recep Tayyip Erdogan looked on. 11 people were injured and 2 Turkish bodyguards were briefly detained. The U.S. later summoned the Turkish ambassador to raise concerns, and today, Turkey responded in kind, summoning the U.S. ambassador. Turkey is protesting what it calls aggressive and unprofessional actions by American authorities against the Turkish security officers. Coming up, he turned away from a dark path. Now he shares hard-earned lessons.
And I've got, I think, 14 people today that gave over their razor blades and that have decided today is their last day of cutting.
And there are renewed calls to end the use of horse-drawn carriages in Quebec after 2 accidents this weekend. But the controversy has been brewing in the province for years. Kate McKenna has the latest.
Horse-drawn carriages traveling up and down streets is a common sight in Quebec City. This weekend, 2 calèches, as they're known in French, were involved in accidents within 1 hour of each other. The vet who examined this horse believes she was dehydrated when she apparently collapsed.
Fanny, c'est sûr qu'elle a minimum 3 semaines.
That horse is going to stay in the stable for at least 3 weeks, says Vicky Gérard, the horse's groom. They haven't determined if she'll be going back to work. The second horse spooked, leaving its carriage on the grass.
On travaille avec du vivant.
We're working with living animals. This sort of thing can happen, she says. But these are the latest in a series of incidents putting an unflattering spotlight on the industry. Overnight, a long-standing petition to ban calèches in Quebec City got hundreds more names in support. But the majority of debate surrounding calèches has been here in Montreal. The industry is larger and there have been more high-profile incidents. The city tried to ban them last year, but the ban was suspended by a Quebec Superior Court injunction, which the city decided not to challenge. The calèche businesses say the horses are treated well, but the SPCA isn't so sure.
It's obviously horrible to hear about horses suffering in that manner, but I have to say that we weren't surprised. Every single year we hear of a number of accidents in the city of Montreal and elsewhere where, unfortunately, this antiquated industry is still in place.
But tourist opinion is divided.
It's just something different, right? And you don't see it all the time. And it just shows the richness of Montreal, I think.
I don't like hurt animals. So it's difficult for them to move on the road.
I think it's very cool. It's a half an hour of a ride and it's enough to see, and it's good to enjoy, you know.
The SPCA says it's going to continue its campaign to end caleches in the province. This year, Montreal is celebrating its 375th birthday. Staff worry the additional noise and celebrations will cause greater risk to horses prone to spooking. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Montreal.
The counting has resumed in BC's May 9th election, and those 180,000 absentee votes now being counted for the first time could make a big difference in this squeaker. 2 ridings are also being recounted. It all means the political landscape could significantly change in just a matter of days. Briar Stewart explains.
Along False Creek in Vancouver, it was a perfect day for a paddle or even a midday nap. Yet, in the crowds out enjoying the sunshine, there were some taking a moment to consider the province's political climate.
I just sort of wonder what's going to happen if there isn't a majority.
It's pretty exciting. I mean, I'm only 26 and we've never had an election this interesting in the province before.
So close that nearly 2 weeks after the election, BC is still in political limbo. Initial results point to the Liberals holding on to power, but falling 1 seat short of forming a majority government. However, that could change because nearly 180,000 absentee ballots were cast, including some in those very close ridings.
Certainly, there's been a lot of attention for this particular election on the absentee ballot counting process.
And that count started today, and it's not the only tallying underway. 2 ridings are being recounted, one in Vancouver False Creek, where there was a discrepancy in the number of ballots recorded during an advanced poll. And then there's the highly contested riding of Courtney Comox. After more than 27,000 votes were counted on election night, the NDP candidate had the lead over the Liberals by just 9 votes. A slim margin considering that nearly 2,100 absentee ballots still need to be counted in this riding.
There's an appetite for change.
This political scientist says whatever the final results are, it's clear that the province is divided.
So a lot rides on this. I mean, we could go from anything from a majority, but bare majority government of the Liberals all the way to a Green NDP coalition of some sort.
For some, they see the upside of having a minority government, particularly when it comes to controversial projects, including pipelines and hydroelectric dams.
I hope it might open some more dialogue and looking at things from a different manner, like the Kinder Morgan and Site C.
Tonight, the recounts in those 2 ridings are complete. In Courtney Comox, the NDP lead stands at 13 votes. In Vancouver False Creek, the Liberal lead remains relatively unchanged at more than 560. But all of those absentee ballots still need to be counted, so it could take a few days before the final results are in. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
I want to bring you up to date on the situation in Manchester, England tonight. There was at least 1 large explosion in the arena there just after a concert by Ariana Grande finished. British police say at least 19 people were killed and 50 people injured. They say they are treating this as a terror incident. We continue to watch this story and we'll have more updates for you throughout the hour. Straight ahead, a tough-looking singer shows young Indigenous people how to get on the right path.
The bird with feathers of blue is waiting for you.
Henry and Pat Cruzen are a successful young couple, married 3 years with a just christened daughter. They live in a basement apartment in suburban Toronto. Henry makes a good salary as an accountant. He should be able to afford a house, but at today's prices, he can't.
What does this house sell for?
$27,600 for this model.
Yeah, so if you have just an average, let's say $4,000 or $5,000 down, you're talking almost $250 a month to carry the home and heat it, and which is a substantial amount.
What a year for real estate, from boom to bust. In the early months of the year in most parts of the country, sales were at record levels and house prices were soaring. But in May it went flat, because in May the interest rate on first mortgages reached 18%. Well, this afternoon it reached 20%. and the market is flatter still.
Canada's yuppies have gone condo mad. Apartments are being converted to condominiums, and about 10,000 condos were built last year. The building and sales boom continues, especially in the big cities.
I think condominium investment, particularly for women, is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
To see all the plastic sheeting everywhere, you'd think BC's housing boom was still on, but it isn't. And there's a story behind the sheeting. It's not about new construction, but about repairs to all the shoddy construction, which BC put up with during a decade of frenzied growth. It's an epidemic of rot, which has made BC the land of the leaky condominium.
It's not what Robbie Stewart and Rodney Tollhausen are making for dinner that's noteworthy, it's where they're making it. Just behind the house they used to live in. This is a laneway house, about 640 square feet plus garage. Small, yes, but apparently a perfect fit.
There's only the two of us and the dog, and it's enough space for us for sure. That kind of lifestyle appeals to me as well, as opposed to having hordes and hordes and hordes of stuff.
Back in your own backyard.
I was done being angry. I remember I screamed at the sky and I was like, I want to do something today. Like, I want to do something that matters. Like, I want my life to count.
Suicide is the cause of 1 in 4 deaths of young Canadians, and the silence surrounding mental illness can make it a hard topic to tackle. Young people often don't open up to parents, teachers, or others who can help. But a Manitoba musician is using his voice and his experience to try to help save lives. Karen Poles has his story.
This might look like a traditional rock concert, but it's not.
Tell me why. Yeah.
Rob Nash does concerts in schools, on First Nations, and in jails. Today, he's performing for Métis children in the care of Manitoba's child welfare system.
You didn't grow up with the best parents or whatever situation you've come from. You've got a strength inside of you that person with perfect parents does not have. I promise you that.
Nash sings and talks about tough subjects.
I tell you, suicide's not an escape from pain. You don't get to go party with Kurt Cobain, you know?
He offers encouragement for how to move forward.
Just for today I won't use, or just for today I won't cut. Just for today I'll fight and I'll stay alive, and that's how you win any battle.
Nash knows what he's talking about. A car crash at 17 almost killed him. He was depressed, suicidal, until one day.
Remember, I was done being angry. I remember I screamed at the sky and I was like, I want to do something today. Like, I want to do something that matters. Like, I want my life to count.
In the last 5 years, 645 teens have given him suicide notes after his concerts. They want him to read them, then rip them up, because they've changed their minds about killing themselves.
A lot of people nowadays, they don't just write them out on paper, but we deleted some out of phones. And I've got, I think, 14 people today that gave over their razor blades and that have decided today is their last day of cutting.
Nash's right arm is covered in tattoos of more than 100 signatures from those notes, permanent messages of hope in black and red.
He just helps people overcome their demons.
Nick is a former kid in care. We can't identify him because he's still connected to the system. He heard Nash at a concert a few years ago and says it encouraged him to stay in school.
For me, like, I grew up with not having parents and the structure, and I still overcame all that, right? I still graduated and I still came over all of the violence that I've seen, and if I could do it, anybody could do it.
Jessica Edwards became a permanent ward of the child welfare system when she was only 3 weeks old. She struggled with depression and anxiety for most of her life. Now 30, she's studying to be a social worker, but she still identifies with Nash's message.
You know, you're not stuck in hell today, that you can get out of this and move forward. And if you have a great team behind you, support system, they should be able to be that safety net and push you in the right direction.
That's exactly why Billy Shibler arranged this concert.
Life is hard, and it can come and kick you when you're not expecting it. And we can't always be there to prevent that, but we want to teach you and give you tools and messages of hope to know that you can reach out to anybody, and we're here to help you.
So tell me why.
Nash knows he's just one voice, but he hopes his message will give teens the courage to speak out.
As a band, we're not trying to change the world here. We're trying to create world changers. If we can inspire these people to take their stories, their lives, and turn that around, think of the impact that could have.
Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Coming up, a twist of fate unites Alberta families in distress.
So here it is. Can't believe the journey it's made.
They never would have met if not for something resembling a miracle. Plus, Conservatives try to define who they are as the leadership hangs in the balance. Let's check the day's business numbers. The Canadian markets were closed for Victoria Day, but in New York, the Dow rose 89 points. The price of oil was up 40 cents a barrel.
We just gave the blah blah list.
This is Roger Tétrault. He's a Montreal bill collector. That's his job. He also holds news conferences. That's his hobby. Here's Tétrault 3 years ago, posing as the president of a fictional group called Water Aid for America, urging that Canada ship its water to the drought-stricken U.S. The national media gobbled it up.
Here is the CBC News. A group of Montreal residents wants to pressure the Canadian government into diverting water from the Great Lakes into the Mississippi River.
The French language network of the CBC believed Tétrault was also a nuclear expert. Here he is telling a national audience how the Chernobyl disaster could rain down assorted horrors on North Americans. The now defunct Montreal Daily News had him under another name, Tubal Cain, and yet another vocation. It's been going on for years. In 1971, the Montreal Star thought it had a scoop, an internal CIA memo outlining covert operations in Quebec. It even made the National on CBC.
Under a CIA letterhead, the document reads, Subject, Quebec.
It was Tétrault's work, of course. Around the same time, he suckered the Toronto Star Weekly with a phony FLQ terrorist camp in the Laurentian Hills.
I told myself, if they want fiction, I'll give them fiction. So I gave them fiction.
Tétrault says there are many others like him, only nowadays they're known as media consultants and spin doctors.
Whoever's got an axe to grind, they give their spin to it and they get into the media, and that's the story that goes out.
He's absolutely right. Governments, anybody who's covered governments or followed things they do, know that they engage in this, where you want to call them trial balloons or disinformation, they do it frequently.
Is Tétrault's career as a hoaxer over? Perhaps, but he says he'll certainly keep trying, guided by the firm belief that there's a reporter born every minute.
He mouthed two words, the first word of which started with F and the second word of which started with O. Well, it's a lie, because I didn't say anything.
Did you
mouth it? What does mouth mean? Move your lips. Yes, I move my lips.
In the words you've been quoted as saying?
No.
Did you intend to convey that?
What were you thinking when you moved your lips?
What is the nature of your thoughts, gentlemen, when you say fuddle-duddle or something like that? God, you...
Well, the big topic on Parliament Hill today wasn't the Constitution, it wasn't the economy, it was the Prime Minister and his language.
I heard him say very clearly, f***ing bastard.
I convey to the Speaker my regrets for any inconvenience, and I convey to any honourable member of the House my regrets to them.
Just quieten down, baby.
Liberal Sheila Copps didn't think the remark was very funny.
I'm not his baby, and I'm nobody's baby, and I'd like him to withdraw those remarks.
The House is no stranger to heated exchanges, but few have been this heated or this strange.
For shame.
Now, I hear the word racist from that side. Do you have the fortitude or the gonads to stand up and come across here and say that to me, you son of a bitch? Come on.
Daryl.
Order. Order.
Yes. Stinson came within 3 meters of Liberal John Canis before returning to his seat.
It was too much for one Liberal MP.
I did not say fuddle-duddle. That was another generation.
I think that we've reached a point where this type of conduct, it's not only disgraceful, but it's unacceptable.
Turning back to the explosion in Manchester, England now, where 19 people were killed tonight. We've reached a young concertgoer on the phone who traveled to the city for the Ariana Grande show. 22-year-old Jess Kelly joins me now via Skype. Jess, where were you when the explosion happened?
We were right just above where it happened, really. We were about to go down the stairwell into the concession area where it happened, and we heard the explosion. Everybody turned to the left, screamed and started running. So me and my friend who I was with, we just went back to the stage area, the main concert area, and just tried to get away from the mass of people that were stampeding out, really.
What was going through your mind? What was your reaction when you heard the explosion and when you saw the aftermath?
Well, we instantly thought it was a bomb. I know a lot of people around us did. And we just instantly thought, like, this is it, really. Like, we thought we'd probably die in there. It was really scary.
Right. Why did you think it was a bomb?
Just because I've never heard anything so loud before. And actually, when we left, when we actually went out, you could smell the gunpowder, and there was no doubt in our mind that it wasn't a bomb. So,
what did you see?
We just saw the masses of people stampeding, and then we were two of the last people to actually leave because we just lingered in like a safe area for a while. And as soon as we left, we saw police everywhere, ambulances, people just lied around bleeding. It was really, really bad.
Yeah. Now we're hearing from the Prime Minister and also from the police that it was, in fact, in their mind, they're treating this as a terrorist attack, a terrorist incident. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, like, my first reaction was that it was a terrorist attack. So I do believe it's true. It just seems too random to have happened accidentally, and it happened like exactly when the concert ended, right at the end, when everyone was leaving, when everyone was, crowded into a small area trying to get out the doors. It didn't seem like an accident.
Right. And the police, describe how the police were moving in and trying to get control of the stampede that you just described.
So it actually took quite a while for them to get there, maybe like 5-10 minutes. They didn't start arriving until we were leaving, and like I said, we were two of the last people out. So yeah, I mean, there's still helicopters and police everywhere right now that we can hear like hours later. So yeah, it did take them a while, but I think once they got there, they tried to get it under control, but like most people had left. So yeah. Jess, how are you doing now? Me and my friend, we're still very shook up. We don't feel great. And after learning that 19 people have died, it's really sad, and can't actually believe we were in there when it happened.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll leave it there with you. Thank you for sharing your experience with us in Canada this evening, and I wish you the very best going forward, as we do all the people in Manchester in dealing with this.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll have an update on the Manchester explosion coming up, including the Prime Minister's comments. Stay with us for that.
Leonard Cohen is a Canadian poet, novelist, and despite an air of frail vulnerability, he's a very confident young man.
I feel free when I'm singing.
Do you make up your own songs?
I always thought of myself as a singer, and kind of got sidetracked into literature.
Can you sing?
Well, I think that if the song is really good and it's your own, then what comes out is music.
But now another stranger seems to want you to ignore his dreams as though they were the burden of another.
Oh, yes. Well, I'd feel pretty lousy if I were praised by a lot of the people that have come down pretty heavy on me.
Cannot stand what I become. You much prefer the gentleman I was before.
Well, I always felt that my work was more eccentric, and that if it touched the mainstream from time to time, I would be lucky.
I remember you well in the Chelsea Hotel. You were famous, your heart was a legend.
All right, it is Mr. Leonard Cohen!
You know, it's only in a country like this that I could get the male vocalist of the year.
The women tear their blouses off and the men they dance on the polka dots, and his partner found and his partner lost, and his hell to pay when the fiddler stops.
Well, I don't know. People have called me pessimistic, you know, but I think the pessimist is someone who's waiting for it to rain, you know, and I feel completely soaked to the skin. So it's clothes and tile. Sometimes I see myself in the midst of it, or I catch sight of myself in the mirror, you know, this old guy in his underwear, you know, kind of trying to find the rhyme for orange. And, you know, playing the same phrase on his guitar 15, 20, 90 times, trying to get it right. There's something absurd about that, but, you know, the nature of work is repetition.
And do you come up with a rhyme for orange?
Door hinge.
Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of
Welcome back to The National, everyone. Tonight, we are following the latest developments on what police are calling a terrorist incident in Manchester, England. At least 19 people have been killed after a blast went off at the arena there after an Ariana Grande concert. At least 50 people are injured. The Prime Minister of Britain is weighing in now, saying confirming, in fact, that police are treating the incident as an appalling terrorist attack. And of course, she's saying their thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. As you can imagine, there were thousands of people in the arena tonight when that, whatever it was, the explosion occurred. Sarah Galashan joins me now from Vancouver. And Sarah, you've been monitoring the witness reaction.
Carol, we've been watching this and the pictures, the witness reaction coming in over the last couple of hours. This was an arena that had a capacity to hold more than 20,000 people. It does appear that this was a packed arena, and it was an Ariana Grande concert. So many of those who were in attendance would have likely been young people, many of them young girls. And you can see that from the pictures of the people as they try to exit this arena as quickly as they can. The arena in Manchester confirming that the incident took place outside of the arena, which maybe speaks to just how powerful it was, in that we have heard from witnesses who say that it could be felt inside. As they were exiting, they heard it, they maybe felt it. There are people from outside who say they saw the stadium actually shake. There was chaos inside, and that's quite clear from the pictures that we have seen online and in the witness accounts that we've been hearing throughout the evening. I want to play you just a little bit of what some of those concert goers who were inside that arena at the time had to say about the experience.
there was smoke coming like up through the steps, and everyone was just screaming and shouting, saying that it could be a bomb, and there was people shouting for the kids.
And everyone just started running. Everybody was trying to push people up the stairs. There was a lady in a wheelchair trying to get away. She was absolutely hysterical, bless her. People were just pushing past her. So I held them back while she actually got out of the stairwell, and the person who was with her took them to safety. But the problem was a lot of children were there without parents. There was no one to calm them down.
I think that's particularly a poignant point there, that there were people, young people, children, as they're described, who might have been at that concert without parents, finding themselves in this situation late at night. Presumably they were off to either catch transit or to meet their parents outside. And of course, transit shut down. And so what we are understanding is that hotels have been opening up to people who are stranded, taxis picking people up. There has been a casualty bureau set up so that parents and loved ones can check in and find out where their loved ones might be if they haven't been able to connect. But Carol, we understand that those who have not managed to connect with their loved ones have taken to posting their pictures online on Twitter, asking people to check and to check in with them. They're doing everything they can to find those concert goers themselves, because of course police have cordoned off a large area around the arena, and they are asking everyone, including concerned parents, to stay back as they investigate what they're calling a terrorist incident. Carol?
All right, Sarah, thank you so much for this. We'll continue to follow this story throughout the evening here on The National, but we're also following other news as well. And another big story in this country, the Conservative leadership race. Whoever wins this weekend will become only the second permanent leader the party has ever had. There was no question what the party was and what it represented under Stephen Harper, but the current leadership race has made it more challenging to define the party right now. Catherine Cullen looks at where the party could go from here.
Well, tonight's result is certainly not the one we had hoped for. The people are never wrong.
This was more than just the end of an era. Stephen Harper is the first and only permanent leader the Conservative Party of Canada has ever had. Now party members are trying to figure out something that in over a decade they have never had to contemplate. What is the Conservative Party without Stephen Harper?
Now, some things are sacred for the Conservative Party, like promising to lower taxes or embrace free trade. But this leadership race has shown that there are other issues up for discussion.
The growth of conservatism in Canada, our electoral support, has been largely, not exclusively, but largely by our penetration of immigrant voters.
Under Harper, immigration levels went up. He wanted more immigrants that could help power Canada's economy, and he wanted their votes. But he also made it easier to kick some people out of Canada.
We will and have revoked the citizenship of people who are convicted of terrorist offenses.
Now, how to approach immigration is a major debate.
Our immigration policy should be tied on our best interests as a country.
I want to make sure that they accept our Canadian values.
And you can do it in a way that's balanced and focused at public safety. And if we do that, we'll win. If we do it wrong, we'll lose.
We asked 3 of Stephen Harper's former cabinet ministers where it could all take the party. Jason Kenney, former immigration minister, now trying to unite Conservative political parties in Alberta. Former Defence and Justice Minister Peter MacKay comes from the Progressive Conservative side of the party. And Michelle Rempel, who still serves as an MP and Conservative critic for immigration. Kenney has publicly called out Kelly Leitch's plan to screen for Canadian values, but he says it's unreasonable to suggest there's a bigger problem with the tone of the leadership race.
If you look at Europe or the United States or Australia, you'll see political parties with elected representatives who are xenophobic, who are opposed to immigration. We don't have that in Canada.
Still, MacKay says the wrong tone on this issue could hurt the party.
Canada has always been seen and will continue to be seen as a beacon, as a welcoming place
we're in danger, in my view, if you stray too far from that narrative.
This is where compassion gets difficult.
Rempel says it's not enough for any political party to simply say they care about refugees. She says they also have to ask questions about security screening, how people will find work, and be able to get language training.
It is not compassionate for a government to bring 25,000 people here and have no plan for integration.
For supply management, I actually think this deal is a very important deal.
The way Canada manages the supply and price of dairy, eggs, and poultry has big economic implications. And it's got Donald Trump's attention.
Canada, what they've done to our dairy farm workers is a disgrace.
Right now, farmers buy the right to produce a certain amount of product and in exchange get to sell it at a set, stable price. Just one candidate in this race is ready to get rid of Canada's supply management system, saying it will save Canadian consumers money, while the others are pledging to protect Canadian farmers.
We must abolish supply management. That's a cartel.
You don't start off negotiations by unilaterally surrendering an entire section of our economy.
If they're coming after our farmers, why are you offering them up on a silver platter?
McKay says dumping supply management could scare off some of the Conservatives' key voters.
The majority of our seats currently and going forward are very much in the rural parts of Canada. There is a danger in looking negatively at supply management.
Rempel seems cautious too. She says it's not just up to the new leader.
I do think that our membership is going to have a large say on how we approach this issue.
But Kenney seems open to change.
Well, we're one of the only developed countries in the world with a system like this. I think it's healthy that Maxime Bernier has introduced this as an idea. We shouldn't have subjects that are beyond debate in a lively modern democracy.
Now, you asked about one particular family planning issue. I think you know very well, we all know very well how divisive that issue is.
The word Stephen Harper managed not to say there is abortion. Domestically, it was a non-starter under Harper.
Our government's going to do everything we can to keep from reopening that particular debate.
Though he did make other small gestures to appeal to social conservatives, like agreeing not to fund abortions internationally. But will Harper's approach to socially conservative issues continue?
As Prime Minister, I would maintain that commitment to my caucus and the party that these issues wouldn't be reopened.
Our friends, social conservative, they have a place in our party. And if they want to table a bill on abortion, let's have that debate.
Michelle Rempel has faced off with social conservatives in her party. She pushed the Conservatives to drop the traditional definition of marriage from party policy, making it officially neutral on same-sex marriage.
I declare the motion adopted.
She says she's not concerned about where more discussion would lead.
The one thing that I'm proud about with my party is that we have had space to have these conversations.
Kenney, a social conservative, says he believes Stephen Harper was right not to take initiative on contentious moral questions, though he says there still needs to be room for careful debate.
It requires a certain degree for prudent expression of freedom of expression within a caucus, within a party. I think we've got that just about right.
McKay says whatever happens, he doesn't believe it will lead to any big changes.
Many of these subjects have, for all intents and purposes, been decided.
Regardless of who wins, change is coming to the Conservative Party. The question is how dramatically it evolves from Stephen Harper's vision. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
CBC News will have all of the action from the Conservative Leadership Convention. Peter Mansbridge, Rosemary Barton, and the At Issue panel will all be part of our live coverage this Friday and Saturday on CBC News Network, CBC Television, CBC Online. A 90-year-old BC man has been living a costly nightmare. He was scammed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars by foreign criminals. Cybercrime experts warn fraudsters are getting bolder. And they say a coordinated effort is needed to protect Canadians. Rosa Marcatelli explains.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. You're getting on with it, Ross, aren't you?
I am. The thing that 90-year-old Ron Jones didn't see coming changed his life. A complicated con job cost him his life savings and put him deep into debt, facing 2 mortgages on his one property. His only choice, pack up his life and sell his condo to pay it all back.
The bottom dropped out of my whole
life, as it were.
The con job was 4 years in the making, starting with Jones paying for fake computer virus monitoring and then evolving into something more troubling. He started getting calls from a scammer posing as a CIA agent who convinced Jones he was wanted in India for funding terrorism.
This terrorist organization had attacked some people in a town, and several people had been killed, and that I was being held responsible for the deaths of some of those people. And that really staggered me. You know, you can understand that, because it is something that, you know, I'm a very gentle person.
The only way out, he was told, was to keep wiring money to the terrorist group until the Indian government could nab them on the other side when they tried to collect. Jones emptied his bank accounts, maxed out his credit cards, and borrowed tens of thousands of dollars in an effort to clear his name. By the time his daughter found out, the BC senior was out more than $200,000.
To think that your dad at 90 is going to fall into foreclosure it's just so, it's heart-sickening that this can happen.
It was so well planned and carried out that I felt it was genuine.
Canadians lost $13 million to foreign scams last year. That's more than 70% of all the money lost to fraud. This expert in cyber forensics says a coordinated body that includes police, government, and private companies like banks is overdue.
It's becoming something that doesn't only affect people, it does affect corporations, governmental organizations. It touches sometimes also our critical infrastructure. So there is a need to have some significant investments and much more collaboration.
After Go Public told the mortgage company what happened to Jones, it agreed to waive one of the mortgages and not charge him interest on the other until he could afford to pay it back. He's since sold the condo, and now he's living on his pension in a retirement home. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Many Canadians consider this weekend the first long weekend of the summer. Technically, it's not summer yet, but you can't stop a good Canadian from letting a little sun and warmth get them excited. Summer forecasts are still being finalized, and they could change, but there appears to be some trends developing, especially on the prairies, where too much heat is not always a plus. Bonnie Allen takes a look.
An early warm snap meant an early explosion of ticks in Saskatchewan.
You can see the little scabs and the little sores everywhere on her. Those are all tick attachment sites.
This stray puppy nearly died after being attacked by 700 ticks. Veterinarian Tanya Marshall had to use her own dog to donate blood for a transfusion.
Blood was life-saving to her. Without that, she would have passed away, and probably through the night, if she hadn't been brought into to our clinic, she wouldn't have made the night. That's how much blood she had lost from the ticks being engorged on her.
Temperatures have fluctuated on the prairies this spring, but with plenty of moisture. So the wildfire season is off to a slow start. Both Alberta and Saskatchewan are reporting fewer fires than normal, about half of what they usually see.
This spring we've received a lot more rain, we've had a lot more moisture. Compared to the same time last year, we had about 500 wildfires. This year we're just over 200.
But things could turn quickly come summer. The weather forecasting company AccuWeather predicts July and August will be hot and dry across the prairies, elevating the fire risk, particularly in northern parts of Alberta and BC. It's also calling for a warm west coast, severe storms in Ontario, and cool, wet weather in the Atlantic provinces.
The prairies are a little bit of a question mark. And it's
Senior meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff says certain weather patterns could change that.
We're really waiting to see what happens with the building El Nino. There is still a chance we could be looking at a very hot and dry forecast for the prairies, but there's still a few factors up in the air.
We prepare our aircraft and our crews and our equipment so that we're prepared to tackle whatever fire season puts in front of us, whether that's a few fires, whether there's lots of fires, whether they're big fires or small fires.
Generally, long-range forecasts suggest most of Canada can expect a warmer than normal summer. But predicting the fire risk can be difficult. A few days without rain and high winds can change conditions quickly. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, near Regina.
Tonight, our top story is the Manchester explosion. 19 people confirmed dead. We'll get an update from Thomas Dagler next.
military here say they have never seen anything like it around the Lincoln Memorial, or for that matter, anywhere else here in the capital of the United States.
Lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time.
This park area on the Washington Mall, right underneath the Capitol Dome, has been the gathering place for many demonstrations, but none quite so strange as this collection of uniformed veterans, complete with medals and toy machine guns. The anti-war movement in this country is an ever-changing phenomenon. You never know quite what to expect next.
William H. Carroll from Atlanta, Georgia. 26 air medals and all the other stuff that goes with it.
Washington was the scene today of the largest anti-nuclear demonstration ever held in the U.S.
468, we don't want to radiate. 468, we don't want to radiate.
If you're not building for the future, you're stealing from it.
They call the Supreme Court decision a tragic mistake. And on this, the 10th anniversary of legalized abortions, 26,000 marchers vowed to begin a second decade of protest.
Organizers are calling it the biggest pro-choice rally in history.
We will never give up. We will never give up. We will never give in. We will never give in.
From Capitol Hill to the Washington Monument, they formed an awesome mass of people. Not the 1.5 million the organizers claimed, but the largest ever gathering of Black Americans.
We're not here to tear down America. America is tearing itself down. We are here to rebuild the wasted cities.
This was exactly the image organizers wanted, a pageant of Americans before a national icon. Summoned by a political commentator and a champion of conservatives.
This day is a day that we can start the heart of America again.
Look around you, you're not alone. You are Americans.
The National.
The National.
Tonight.
We want to take you back to London now for the latest on the explosion at the Manchester Arena. British police say it is being treated as a terror attack. They have confirmed 19 dead, about 50 people injured. Thomas Dagler joins me live from London. Thomas, take us through what we know so far.
Well, the explosion occurred just as concert goers were beginning to leave the venue after Ariana Grande had left the stage. It happened in a public area, apparently near the box office. Police so far have not confirmed the U.S. media reports that this was carried out by a suicide bomber. Now, keep in mind, most of the people at this concert tonight would have been young, perhaps children or teenagers, given the nature of the concert. So tonight, parents and family members who haven't been able to reach their kids have started posting pictures of their loved ones on social media saying, "Have you seen my child?" So a very difficult situation. Again, 19 people confirmed dead, about 50 injured. No group has claimed responsibility for this, but groups related to ISIS online are said to be celebrating this incident on social media. British Prime Minister Theresa May tonight has called this an appalling terrorist attack. Carol.
All right. And we're just seeing now that Downing Street is to hold an emergency meeting, an emergency security meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock London time. Thomas, thank you for that. We will continue to cover this story. This is the National for this Monday night. And for now, for updates on the Manchester explosion, stay tuned to CBC News Network or head to cbcnews.ca. I'm Carol McNeil. Thank you for joining me. Good night.